There's a kind of cruelty that hides behind silence, a type of assault that doesn't leave bruises on your skin, but fractures every corner of your soul. You know it, don't you? You've lived it. That quiet war they waged against you, not with swords or fists, but with manipulation, with betrayal, with those carefully chosen words that sliced through your spirit like sharpened blades. They didn't hurt you by accident. They didn't misunderstand you. They didn't make a careless mistake. No, they knew exactly what they were doing. They set their sights on you like hunters stalking fragile prey. They observed your goodness, your trust, your patience, and they despised it. They despised the purity you carried because it exposed their corruption. So they plotted, they whispered, they orchestrated your downfall not for justice, not for truth, but for control, for destruction. Have you ever wondered why the ones you love the most often carry the sharpest knives? Why the people closest to your heart are sometimes the ones who twist the dagger deeper with every smile? It's because they thought they could. They thought your kindness was weakness. They mistook your silence for surrender. They believed they could break you, bury you beneath the weight of lies, betrayal, and rejection, and walk away untouched. But here's what they didn't see coming. God did. God saw every hidden conversation, every smear of your name, every moment they delighted in your pain. God watched them as they laughed while your world collapsed. And while they thought they were burying you, they didn't realize they were planting the very seed of their own ruin. You see, that's how God works. What they designed to destroy you, heaven redesigns to rebuild you. The ruins they left behind, God uses them as the foundation for your next chapter. And karma, it doesn't sleep, it doesn't forget. It may arrive softly without warning, but when it comes, it arrives with divine precision. The pain they handed you becomes the lesson they cannot escape. They wanted you destroyed, but destruction never has the final word, not when God is involved. You may have stumbled, you may have cried, you may have questioned your worth, your future, your very existence. But here you are, still breathing, still standing, still holding fragments of hope in your trembling hands. That's not weakness, that's divine resilience. So let them watch. Let them witness what they never expected. The ashes they scattered are the soil of your rise, and the very karma they unleashed now circles back, heavy with the weight of every wound they delivered. God saw every hidden intention behind their actions. There is a comfort, subtle yet unshakable, in knowing that nothing escapes the eyes of God. No whispered betrayal, no hidden scheme, no carefully constructed mask of false affection, none of it remains unseen. You may have felt alone in the quiet hours of your suffering, questioning why the walls around you crumbled without warning, questioning why those you trusted turned their backs so easily. But you were never truly alone. God was present, not merely as a distant observer, but as the keeper of truth, the silent witness to every act done in the shadows. They thought they could plot behind closed doors, that their betrayal could be wrapped in smiles and polite conversation. They believed their manipulation, their schemes, their quiet destruction of your character would be buried under layers of deception. But God is not confined by walls, nor is his vision clouded by falsehoods. He saw it all, the rehearsed lies, the calculated silence, the moments they celebrated your downfall behind the scenes, every intention soaked in jealousy, every hidden motive driven by pride, every action laced with the hope of watching you fall apart. Isn't it strange how those with corrupt hearts often assume their deeds will remain concealed? They forget that the creator of the universe, who formed the stars and designed the intricacies of every living soul, misses nothing. His justice is patient, his understanding is infinite, and his awareness extends beyond the surface. While they plotted to destroy you, God took note of the intent behind every action. Not just the visible words, not merely the surface-level offense, but the heart, the rotting seed from which their betrayal sprouted. And here's the beauty of divine awareness. When God sees, He remembers. Not for vengeance driven by emotion, but for justice crafted with precision. Those hidden intentions they thought were buried. They are preserved as evidence. Evidence that testifies against them when the tables inevitably turn. Because the law of the heavens cannot be outsmarted. They may have convinced the world of their innocence, but they cannot deceive the one who searches hearts and weighs motives with perfect understanding. So, while your heart ached in confusion, wondering how people could harm you so effortlessly, why betrayal found you when all you offered was sincerity, know this. God was not blind to the wickedness that hid beneath their rehearsed compassion. He saw their pride when they thought they had succeeded in crushing you. He observed their arrogance as they walked away from the wreckage they caused in your life. And He took note, carefully, patiently, unwaveringly. You may not always see immediate justice, but rest assured, when God sees, He acts on His timing, with His wisdom, in ways that expose every hidden intention they thought would never come to light. Their deceit was visible to Him long before it unmasked itself to the world, and the same God who witnessed their schemes is the one preparing your restoration. Your collapse was temporary, your comeback is eternal. There's a terrifying arrogance in the hearts of those who seek to destroy others. They believe their betrayal is the final blow. They watch your collapse with a smirk, convinced that your story ends at the moment they broke your spirit, sabotaged your peace, or shattered your confidence. What they never understood, what they refused to believe, is that your collapse was never the conclusion. It was an interruption, a momentary descent designed not for your ruin, but for your rebirth. You may have stumbled. You may have crumbled beneath the weight of their cruelty. You may have stood in the ashes of your life, breathless, lost, uncertain if hope would ever return. And they rejoiced. They watched from the shadows, whispering, mocking, convinced they had succeeded. But the arrogance of those who try to destroy the innocent is built on ignorance. They forget the nature of divine restoration. God does not abandon those who fall beneath the blows of betrayal. In fact, history is stained with stories of those who were crushed, only to rise stronger, wiser, and crowned with the glory of survival. Your collapse? It was seen by God not as defeat, but as preparation. He allowed the breaking not to end you, but to empty you of what was never meant to stay, and rebuild you with a foundation unshakable by human schemes. They thought your downfall was permanent because they only see with human eyes, limited, narrow, foolish. But God's vision stretches beyond the surface of temporary suffering. He saw the seeds of resilience buried beneath your tears. He saw the embers of courage hidden beneath the rubble of your heartbreak. While they watched your collapse with glee, God was orchestrating your comeback, a return so profound, so undeniable, that it would silence every tongue that mocked you. And here's the truth they cannot outrun. Your comeback isn't ordinary, it's eternal. It doesn't merely restore what they took, it multiplies what was lost. It rebuilds your peace, your purpose, your strength, not in the frail image of the past, but in the divine blueprint of who you were always meant to be. Your collapse was temporary by design, a necessary breaking to make room for the greatness God has destined for you. They underestimated the power of a broken soul held by God. They didn't realize that destruction aimed at the innocent never ends as expected. You rise, and when you do, the collapse they celebrated becomes their greatest regret, the moment they ignited a fire in you that no betrayal can extinguish. Karma wears the face of regret, and it's coming for them. There is a peculiar certainty that governs the world, a law older than any nation, deeper than any philosophy, more unbreakable than stone. The world may call it karma, the scriptures may call it reaping what you sow, but regardless of the name, its grip is undeniable, and it never forgets. Those who plotted your destruction believed their actions would dissolve into the shadows of time. They assumed they could hurt you, exploit you, break you, and walk away untouched. But the universe is far more balanced than their arrogance allowed them to believe. Karma doesn't always come as thunder from the skies or flames that consume instantly. Sometimes it wears the face of regret, the slow, creeping realization that everything they did to you is circling back with precision. It arrives quietly, yet powerfully. It seeps into their lives in unexpected moments. The relationships that crumble without warning, the peace that evades them no matter how they chase it, the haunting weight of knowing they destroyed something pure, something irreplaceable. And regret? It's far more punishing than any outward consequence. It lives within them. It stirs in the stillness of the night when there's no one left to applaud their false victories. It taints their success, poisons their joy, distorts every achievement because deep down they know the foundation they built their life upon is cracked by the harm they inflicted on someone undeserving. You may not always see karma unfold in grand gestures, but make no mistake, it works in layers. First, the silence grows heavier, the silence of God watching, of justice brewing, of hidden intentions festering into visible consequences. Then regret creeps in. It clouds their confidence, stains their pride, unravels their certainty. They begin to feel the very thing they tried to make you feel: uncertainty, loss, collapse. And here's what makes karma so divine. It personalizes itself. It knows precisely where to touch them, how to awaken the regret they cannot silence, how to make them taste the bitterness they served you. Because the universe is designed with balance, and what they handed you, life now prepares to hand them. Regret, shame, the hollow ache of realizing their choices have marked them, not as victors, but as architects of their own undoing. You don't need to orchestrate their downfall. Karma is already at work. God is already aligning the reckoning. And when it arrives, it will not simply punish, it will transform them into prisoners of their own regret, haunted by the echoes of what they did to you, unable to escape the very consequences they once believed they could outrun. The pain they caused, you will become their greatest teacher. Pain is a merciless teacher, but it is often the only one the arrogant cannot ignore. Those who set out to destroy you never expected to be students in a lesson they crafted for someone else. They inflicted pain upon you with confidence, even joy, believing it elevated them, believing it proved their dominance. But pain does not discriminate. It circles, it waits, and it returns. And when it does, it reshapes those who once wielded it as a weapon. The same pain they handed you is preparing to become their greatest teacher, the one lesson they cannot avoid, cannot rewrite, cannot silence. You see, when they shattered your heart, they believed it would be permanent. When they mocked your suffering, they assumed they would never stand where you stood. But the divine design of life has a way of flipping the script, of leading them down the very road they forced you to walk. Imagine their surprise when life corners them with the same betrayal they orchestrated. When they taste rejection that mirrors the rejection they handed you. When they collapse beneath the same weight of loss, heartbreak, and confusion they once laughed at. That's how God humbles the proud, by allowing them to experience the pain they thought they were exempt from. And suddenly, the cruelty they once celebrated becomes the curse they cannot escape. But pain doesn't just punish, it transforms. Their suffering will strip them of illusions, expose their weaknesses, reveal their false strength, and in those moments, they will remember you, not as the broken soul they discarded, but as the reflection of what they've now become, the abandoned, the betrayed, the shattered. That realization, It's devastating to understand they crafted their own suffering through the destruction they once delivered, to recognize that the pain they now endure is not random, it is earned, designed to awaken them to the consequences of their choices. It will follow them, reminding them daily that no cruelty escapes unreturned, no injustice fades without answer. You may never hear their apology, you may never witness their fall publicly, but rest assured, the pain they caused you has already enrolled them in a brutal divine education. And every tear they shed, every regret they swallow, every sleepless night that haunts them, is the evidence that their greatest teacher has arrived. Your brokenness was the beginning of their downfall. There is a hidden pattern to the way life unfolds, one that escapes the proud, the arrogant, and the cruel. They believe breaking you is the climax of their victory. They imagine your shattered spirit, your silence, your withdrawal from the world as proof that they've succeeded. What they never account for is the strange, holy reversal that often follows, the truth that your brokenness was never the end of your story, but the beginning of theirs, the beginning of their downfall. When they shattered your peace, they assumed you would vanish quietly. When they turned their backs, they believed your collapse would be permanent. But they forgot one undeniable truth. Those who break the innocent unknowingly curse themselves. It's a law older than any written word, a divine design that ensures no destruction goes unanswered, no betrayal remains without consequence. Your brokenness wasn't an isolated event, it triggered a spiritual shift they never saw coming. With every tear you shed, heaven listened. With every sleepless night, every quiet moment of questioning your worth, the foundation beneath them cracked, slowly, silently, yet certainly. And here's where the story reverses. While you were rebuilding, God was dismantling them. Their downfall doesn't always appear as fire from the skies or instant ruin. It unfolds quietly, layer by layer. Their relationships falter, their confidence weakens, their peace becomes fragile, fleeting, unreachable. Life has a divine memory. It remembers cruelty, records injustice, and responds accordingly. While they celebrated your breaking, they planted the seeds of their own collapse. And that collapse? It often mirrors the very pain they inflicted. They start to feel the loneliness they forced upon you. They taste the rejection they believed would crush you. Their success, once paraded as evidence of their strength, becomes empty, poisoned by the weight of knowing what they destroyed in the process. Their downfall becomes inevitable, not because you wished it, but because divine justice requires it. So, understand this. Your brokenness wasn't wasted. It was the beginning of a greater story. God allowed it not to humiliate you, but to humble them. And while they fall, you rise, not in bitterness, but in the quiet, undeniable power of someone rebuilt by grace. God rebuilds the humble and shatters the arrogant. There is something sacred about being humbled by life, especially when you didn't choose it. You didn't ask for the betrayal. You didn't invite the rejection, the heartbreak, the loss. Yet it came, crashing through your world with a force designed to reduce you to nothing. And for a time, it felt like it succeeded. Your confidence unraveled, your hope fractured, your voice quieted beneath the weight of humiliation and heartbreak. But where the world saw weakness, God saw preparation. God rebuilds the humble, not the proud, not the arrogant, not the ones who climb on the backs of others to elevate themselves. No, He rebuilds the ones who were brought low, the ones shattered by betrayal, the ones silenced by cruelty, the ones left with nothing but fragments and whispered prayers. And His rebuilding? It's not rushed, it's not shallow, it's deep, precise, unstoppable. While you sat in your brokenness, questioning if you'd ever feel whole again, God was crafting your restoration. He was shaping your resilience, refining your character, fortifying your spirit. The people who tried to destroy you never understood this. They mistook humility for weakness, silence for surrender. But they failed to grasp the divine pattern: the humble rise, the arrogant fall. The proud, the ones who celebrated your pain, who wore their betrayal as a badge of power, they walk toward their own undoing. Their arrogance blinds them to the traps beneath their feet. Their pride isolates them, builds their confidence on lies and self-deception. And as they stand on shaky foundations, convinced of their invincibility, God's justice moves, slowly, quietly, but with terrifying certainty. The same hands that rebuild the broken humble shatter the unrepentant proud. Life has a way of exposing false strength, dismantling facades, unraveling the kingdoms built on the suffering of others. Their downfall isn't always loud at first, but it comes, piece by piece, until the arrogance that once defined them becomes the very weight that drags them into ruin. You, however, are not defined by your fall, but by the God who rebuilds you, and those who watched your breaking will soon witness the undeniable truth. No one stays broken when heaven decides to rebuild. They tried to end your story, but God is just getting started. There's a particular arrogance in those who seek to destroy others. They believe they have the power to end stories, to silence destinies, to permanently erase the future of those they envy or despise. They saw your heart, your kindness, your trust, and instead of cherishing it, they sought to break it. They convinced themselves that their betrayal, their rejection, their cruelty was enough to be the final chapter of your life. To them, you were nothing more than a fragile flame they could snuff out with one calculated blow. But what they didn't understand, and what they never saw coming, is that no one has the authority to end a story that God Himself is still writing. They mistook their momentary victory for a final sentence, but God has been holding the pen all along. And your collapse, your heartbreak, your brokenness, those were not your conclusion. They were simply a plot twist, a temporary pause before the greatest chapter begins. You see, when they hurt you, they underestimated the author of your life. They believed their betrayal would be the punctuation mark that closed your book, but they forgot the divine principle that governs every righteous soul. God finishes what He starts, and when God begins a story in your life, no betrayal, no rejection, no loss can end it prematurely. Think about the countless times they looked at your suffering and smiled, convinced they had silenced your spirit forever. They whispered about your downfall, they celebrated your heartbreak, they paraded their so-called victory over your name. But while they laughed, heaven listened. While they mocked, God planned. And now, what they intended as your ending has become the foundation of your new beginning. Your story was never theirs to end. It belongs to the God who shaped you from dust, who breathed life into your bones, who numbered every hair on your head. And He is just getting started. The pain you endured, it's becoming purpose. The tears you shed, they are watering the soil of your future. The heartbreak you carried, it is the refining fire preparing you for the greatness that lies ahead. What they destroyed, God restores. What they shattered, He rebuilds stronger. And what they tried to bury, He resurrects with power. Their attempt to end your story has only positioned you for a comeback so undeniable, so unexplainable, that even your enemies will be forced to acknowledge it. So when they see you rise, when they witness the chapters unfolding that they never believed possible, understand this: they're not witnessing coincidence, they are witnessing divine justice. They are reading the pages God kept hidden from their prideful eyes. And with every word, every new beginning, every unexpected breakthrough, God reminds them and reminds you, your story is far from over. In fact, it's only just beginning. You were never meant to stay broken. You were never destined to remain buried beneath the rubble of their betrayal. They hurt you, not by accident, but by design. They wanted your destruction, your collapse, your silence. But their desire was never stronger than God's promise. He watched them as they schemed. He heard the lies, the whispered plans, the quiet celebrations of your suffering. And while they believed they had succeeded in destroying you, God was orchestrating something far greater, your rebuilding. And karma? It never forgets. It circles back, dressed as regret, as loss, as suffering, the same suffering they handed to you without mercy. It becomes their teacher, their reminder that every wound they inflicted returns, every cruelty comes home, every betrayal stains their legacy. You are not defined by their actions. You are not the sum of your heartbreak. You are the masterpiece still being crafted by the hands of a God who never abandons his own. And while they face the unraveling of their pride, the haunting of their own choices, you rise, not in vengeance, but in strength, not with bitterness, but with quiet, undeniable power. Let them watch. Let them witness the God who rebuilds the broken, who restores the forgotten, who defends the innocent. Their attempt to end your story has only marked the beginning of their downfall and your greatest rise. They hurt you to destroy you, but God is letting karma rebuild you and ruin them. Your story is not over. Your comeback has just begun.